Hello everyone, my name is Landon and welcome back to another video. Today, I'm going to be going over my top 5 Stephen King novels that I almost DNF'd my first time reading them. If you do not know what DNF'd means, it means did not finish. DNF, did not finish. It's short for it. And I got the inspiration to do this video from a couple of my friends, notably my buddy Isaac. He DNF'd the Dreamcatcher I don't know how long ago. And another YouTuber goes by the name of Erica. She DNF'd it for the second time. She read it once, DNF'd it, and then tried to buddy read it with a friend of mine named Angie, and then she DNF'd it again. So I got the inspiration from them to do my top 5 Stephen King novels that I almost DNF'd. I have not DNF'd a single Stephen King novel. I have read all of them through. The first time I read them, I read all of them through, even though some of them were a little harder to get through than some others. But anyways, let's get straight into the list. With the number 5 spot, we have Bag of Bones. Bag of Bones, the reason why I almost DNF'd this one was because for the first about 300 pages, this is a 700-page book, for the maybe first 200, 300 pages, not a lot happens. There is a cool little cameo of Ralph Roberts in the first 50 pages of it, up to the 100 page, but most of the beginning of it is just really talking about the author and his wife and stuff like that, him getting to the cabin where everything takes place, and nothing really starts going down. But that was when I was kind of bored with it, and then something happens. Around in the middle, things start to pick up. A lot of things start getting going, and that's what kept me reading it. It came really close, but Stephen King basically took my hand. I was falling off a cliff, and he grabbed me back up to it. Because the beginning of this, nothing really happens. But the ending of this book, and definitely the middle, where it grabs you again, is definitely worthwhile. This is also one of his most underrated reads, and I think it's because of the beginning. It's not great, but hey, all of his books are great. At the number 4 spot, we have It. Yes, I almost DNF'd it as well, Erica. Reason being is, I mean, look at this thing. My copy of this, It, is 1,400... Oh, wait, no, we're still going. That's the epilogue. We're still going. 1,473 pages, and the print is 9 size font Arial. It's such a long book that it's hard to get through. I know the struggle that sometimes it is getting through this book. This book isn't meant to be taken in whole, a lot like The Stand, or a lot like It, a lot like Needful Things. These books are not meant to just shove down your throat. You're meant to take these books slowly, 50 pages a day, and get the information slowly as it comes. Needful Things is one of my favorite books of all time, and every time I read that book, I take it slow. I don't go fast because a lot happens in a short span of time, and that's what happens in It. A lot happens in a short span of time, so you want to keep going at it slow. But the first time I read this book, I was trying to rush through it because the movie was coming out, and I didn't want to not have the book finished before I saw the movie that came out 2 years ago. And about 600 pages in, I kind of got bored, and I put it down for a little while, but then I picked it back up, and then I made it through. And then I reread it last summer, and I took it very slow. I took it over the entire summer, and I ended up loving it a lot more than the first time. Even though the first time I read it, it still remains one of his greatest works today. But it is... Oh. Speaking of long, Under the Dome. Unlike It, not a lot happens in this 1,000-page book. This book is ginormous. It's not as long as It, but it is long. And a lot of the stuff in here is filler, in my opinion. I've said it in the past. This book could have been 500 pages long, and it would have been amazing. But there's just a lot of stuff in here that doesn't need to be. There's a lot of scenes. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of stuff in this book that just really doesn't need to be in there. The ending wasn't satisfying, unlike some of the books that were hard to get through, like It, a book that's coming up. A lot of these books have good endings, but this one didn't, and it took 1,000 pages to get there. But I did end up finishing it, obviously. It took me, this was probably the longest it took me to read a Stephen King book. Probably longer than It. Or maybe not longer than It, but Under the Dome is up there for how long it's taken me to read a Stephen King book. Because I just got so bored with it, and I really don't look forward to rereading it. This is one of the few Stephen King books that I haven't reread for obvious reasons, and it's one that I really don't look forward to. I think the only books that I don't look forward to rereading are really just Under the Dome and maybe the Tommyknockers. Maybe, I don't know. But Under the Dome, yeah, definitely. Definitely almost DNF'd that. Speaking of the Tommyknockers, number 2, we have the Tommyknockers. The first 250 pages of this book are incredible. I was so hooked. I thought it was going to be one of my new favorites, because I knew that people kind of trashed it. I looked down the line, and a lot of people trashed it. Edward Lorne doesn't like it. Well, he also doesn't like Dreamcatcher, but he doesn't like it. A lot of people that I looked up on Reddit, they don't really like it. A lot of people said that it's their least favorite Stephen King book. And I got through the first 250 pages, and I was like, wow, what's going on here? This is actually really good. And then I saw where people were coming from. The 500 pages that come after the 250 pages is a trudge through the mud. It is long, it is filler, and a lot of stuff happens that doesn't need to be happening. But, unlike Under the Dome, this book does have a decent ending, which kind of made up for the trip. But I do put this at the number 2 spot because it's shorter than Under the Dome, but it took me about the same time, if not a little shorter, than to finish Under the Dome and this one. So that's the reason why it's shorter. That's why it's at the number 2 spot. It took me about the same time as Under the Dome, and it's shorter than both it and Under the Dome. But the ending I did like, and the first 250 were good, but just everything in the middle, just no. Let's get that back in there. Alright. And at the number 1 spot, we have Lisi's Story. Stephen King's personal favorite book, I think. Lisi Story, I recently just reread, and I got through it actually pretty quick. About a week and a half, 2 weeks it took me to read. But the first time I read this book was about maybe a year ago? Like about a year ago, I read this book for the first time. And it is only 500-some pages. I think it's almost exactly 500 pages, maybe a little longer. Yeah, it's 513 pages long. This book, it was just not, hardly anything happens. Like, really, that's all I can say about it. Not a lot happens. There's a lot of small horror elements to it, but really this is a love story more than anything. It is a love story that takes place within, like, a matter of days. Lisi is telling the story, or Stephen King is telling the story about Lisi, and Lisi's story, or not Lisi's story, the story of Lisi takes only a few days. Like, the book is in a span of a few days, because it's her recollecting memories of Scott, basically, her husband. But other than that, not a lot happens. The recollecting, not a lot happens, but the ending is definitely a lot better. Is like what sort of made up for it. The ending definitely is good because it gives you what you wanted at the beginning. I feel like I should say. That's what Lisi's Story does. At the end, it's like, here's what you wanted. But yeah, the reason I put this at the number 1 spot, my same reason with the Tommyknockers, is it's shorter than all the other ones. And the first time I read it, it took me a long time because it was just like, it was sort of boring to me. I didn't really find it as good as the other books, because before I read Lisi's Story, I had read Dreamcatcher, I had read Needful Things, I had read It, I had read freaking what's it called, Thinner. I read The Girl of Tom Gordon. I read all these amazing books by Stephen King, and then I got to Lisi's Story. I was like, all right, here we go. And then I read through it, and I think about maybe halfway or 3/4 of the way through, I was ready to put it down, but I didn't want to do that because I don't do that with books. I don't think I've ever DNF'd a book. That's why this list is almost a DNF. I have never DNF'd a book ever. So, Lisi's Story is at the number 1 spot. If you guys enjoyed this list, leave a like, subscribe, hit the bell icon if you're new. Let me know what books you've almost DNF'd or DNF'd. I know a lot of people out there have DNF'd books, but I don't think I've ever DNF'd a book. I don't think I have. Either way, leave a comment down below what you guys have almost DNF'd, Stephen King novels that you've DNF'd, Stephen King novels that you've almost DNF'd, or novels in general that you've almost DNF'd or DNF'd in general. So, if you guys enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe to the bell icon if you're new, and I'll see you guys in the next one.